1. My fascination with ghosts and the paranormal began 2 years ago. It was a cool summer night, and it was beginning to rain. Me and my friends, Dan and Todd, were walking back home from a night on the town, which isn't saying much as we live in a small Minnesota town with a population of 1,400 people. We were walking down Roosevelt Street, despite Dan's protest. He hated taking this path home because of the decaying school that sat dormant on the street. Rumor around town was that the school was haunted. People say they have heard screaming and wailing from the school at night, but Todd says it's all bullshit. It's a large modern brick building standing 2 floors tall and takes up the entire block. It was once a nice, up-to-date school, but it closed down a couple years prior due to a dwindling student population. A year later, it was bought by an old mechanic in town, and he intended to renovate it into a hotel, but the city said the school was on the verge of being condemned due to the West Wing's second floor being on the verge of collapse. So now it sits nearly empty. The mechanic Charlie lives alone in the school and works out of the old auto shop room, so his investment wouldn't be a complete waste. Charlie denies the claims of the school being haunted. As we walked closer to the school, Dan and Todd were arguing about how haunted the school was.
I just don't see why we couldn't take a different route home,
Dan said.
This area gives me the heebie-jeebies.
This is the fastest route home, and I'm not trying to get caught in the rain,
Todd replied.
It's just a bunch of small-town gossip is all. This town has nothing else going on, so they make things up to stay interesting.
I went here when I was a kid, I added. There's nothing scary about it. The closest occurrence we had was me almost dying of boredom a couple times.
Yeah, very funny, Dan sighed. My brother says he refuses to step foot on the street after what he heard one night. Okay, but your brother is also a drunk, so who knows exactly what he heard, said Todd.
As Dan and Todd continued bickering about how scary the school was, I heard a faint tapping sound coming from nearby. I stopped dead in my tracks. It sounded like a hand tapping on glass. Guys, shut up for a sec, I said. Do you hear that? They slowed to a stop, and I realized the sound was coming from the direction of the school. The tapping sound became louder, as if someone was beating on a window. I didn't see anything at first, but as I looked closer into the school, I saw the outline of a girl in one of the lower windows. There! In the West Wing, there's a girl in the window on the bottom floor, I stammered as I grabbed my phone from my pocket.
Which window?
Todd asked.
There's a lot of windows, dude. Oh shit, there, I see her,
Dan yelled. I opened the camera on my phone to try to record a video, but before I could, I heard a piercing scream and I dropped my phone. I bent down and picked up my phone off the ground, and when I looked back up, she was gone. Where'd she go? I asked frantically.
She dropped below the window,
Dan responded.
I don't see her anymore.
I continued looking around, but Dan was right. She was gone. Damn it! I exclaimed. I should have gotten that on video.
I don't see anything,
Todd stated.
Are you sure you saw a girl? That screech could have been anything. Yes, dude, I'm sure. That's the scariest moment of my life. Now I'm ready to get the hell out of here. Let's go,
Dan said while picking up the pace back towards home. Wait, shouldn't we find out what the hell that was? I asked.
How? It's private property? Asked Todd. If you want to call the cops and tell them you saw a ghost girl in the school, you can go right ahead. But I'm gonna join Dan and get out of here. It's starting to rain.
As he turned to catch up with Dan, I cursed under my breath again, upset that I had messed up what would have been the best ghost evidence on the internet. I took one more look at the school before turning around to join my friends. 2. That moment sparked my inspiration to start a YouTube channel. So Todd, Dan, and I launched a channel a few months after. We named it the Midwest Ghost Hunters. We have been on a dozen hunts by now with little to no evidence to show for it, but we have amassed 60,000 subscribers. The closest thing we have to evidence is a door closing on its own during our investigation of an abandoned mall. Todd is adamant that it was a draft, but Dan argues it was definitely something paranormal and that Todd is ignorant. Other than that, though, all we caught are some loud creaks and bangs while investigating abandoned houses, which I realize can easily be brushed off as nothing. I am certain that our big break would be if we could investigate the school. Ever since word of our channel got around town, people have told me many stories regarding that building, and they insist that's what we should investigate next. I've already tried asking the owner, Charlie, if I could, but he said he would if he could, but his insurance doesn't want anyone else going in the building, and that they were already opposed to him living there as is. So, for now, I have just been recording the neighborhood stories to hopefully make it into a video later.
3.
I woke up this morning to my phone ringing. I rolled over disgruntledly to see Todd calling. "What do you want?" I answered, a bit harshly.
Well, good morning to you too, sunshine, Todd responded.
"Well, excuse me, it's 8 a.m. on a Saturday. What's so important that couldn't have been a text?" I asked.
Well, I call with good news, Todd said.
"Okay, well, what is it then?" I replied curiously.
Charlie died.
Todd stated a bit too excitedly. I paused before asking, "How is this good news, Todd?"
Well, it's not, but it's good for us at least, because this means we can finally investigate the school, he replied.
I took a moment, thinking it over, unsure what to say. I had only woken up moments ago, and now I'm being told Charlie is dead and that we should investigate his school.
Todd added, Abby just told me his body is going to the coroner's office this morning. An officer found his car wrapped around a tree, and they suspect it happened last night.
Todd's wife, Abby, works for the city, so of course she has the inside scoop.
There's a slight hitch, though, Todd added.
"What's that?" I asked.
Well, Abby tried to notify the next of kin, but all he had listed was some guy in Oklahoma. She told him the news, and he told her that he would be coming up in a couple days and that he was going to buy the school when he gets there, Todd said.
"That's odd," I added. "He's quite the list of priorities, I guess. What would he want with a condemned school, anyway?"
I was wondering the same thing, Todd said. But regardless, that means we would have to investigate it soon before the buyer gets into town.
Todd was right. We could investigate the school now that Charlie's dead. It probably isn't very considerate, but it's a possibility nonetheless. And we wouldn't get another possibility like this again. "Okay, I'll tell Dan," I said finally. "We will investigate the school tonight."
4.
It was well after dark as we approached the school. It's even more ominous when we're this close, especially when it is bathed in the night. The building looks weathered, yet surprisingly current. And besides for the paint flaking and fading away, it looks just as I remember it from when I was a student. We crossed the empty parking lot, and as we got to the front doors, Todd spoke first.
So, do we just walk in through the front door, or did anyone make a plan for how we get inside?
I looked over to Dan, and he gave me a small shrug as a response. I responded, "I guess I didn't consider that part. I put too much thought into whether or not we should and didn't think about if we even could." Dan let out a light chuckle, saying,
I was more worried about if it's more or less illegal to break into a man's house after he's dead. Is it still breaking and entering if he's dead, or is this just trespassing?
"I'm no lawyer. I'm barely a ghost hunter, but from a legal standpoint, I'm going to say maybe, I joked.
Well, he did say he would be okay with it if it weren't for his insurance, Todd replied. Who would we sue now if we got hurt?
Okay, that's a reasonable point, I suppose, I said, trying to make myself feel better about this potential crime. But we better figure out a way inside here soon. I don't want any cops to see us. Anyone have any ideas? Todd bent over and grabbed a large rock.
No, put that down, dude,
Dan said in a hushed shout.
That would definitely be breaking and entering. Well, do you have a better idea?
Todd asked. As Todd and Dan squabble about the most acceptable way to break into a school, I approached the front doors. I put my hands on the doors and gave it a little push, and to our surprise, they actually opened.
You left them unlocked?
Asked Dan. I guess, I responded. It is a small town after all. Maybe he didn't plan to be out for long. Dan and Todd entered the building behind me. The doors closed behind us, and we could hear the sound echo throughout the vast building. We turned on our shoulder lights. The school still has power running to it, but we don't want any neighbors to see the lights on. The school has an odd aesthetic to it, since it is now redesigned to be a home. We stood in the entryway, which is a large open hallway, now designed as a very open living room. There were a few display cases along the nearest wall that now holds Charlie's shoes and coats. The room has a few couches and an older TV. Neither of them seem to be used in a while. You guys ready? I asked as I pulled out the camera.
Yes, but please don't do your regular intro for our video.
Todd pleaded. Why not? I've done it for every video, I asked.
Dude, it's annoyingly stereotypical. If this video does blow up our channel like you say it will, we can't have that type of introduction for the new viewers, Todd stated.
Okay, well, do you want to do the introduction then? I asked him.
Well, no, that'd be even worse, he said.
Okay then, I'll do the introduction my way, I stated. I turned the camera around to face me and hit record. Good evening, Midwest Ghost viewers. We are back again with another investigative video. Tonight, we are investigating my local school. This building is a bit of a local legend. There are so many terrifying stories about this place, so we just had to investigate it. So get ready to start believing in the paranormal. But before you do, don't forget to like and subscribe. I hit pause on the camera, and it was followed by a deafening silence in the room. I could see Todd and Dan holding back laughter.
I agree with Todd, that shit sounds pathetic, dude.
Dan laughed finally. Yeah, I know, I said. It always does.
That would hurt.
Todd chuckled while shaking his head.
Can we go explore now with that out of the way?
Yes, please, I said dejectedly. To the right of the now living room is the gymnasium, and to the left is the swimming pool. We elected to explore the gymnasium first. The gymnasium didn't appear to be altered at all, and it also didn't appear to have been used lately. The bleachers are dusty, and the floor looks as if it hasn't been swept in at least a year. I pulled out my camera to record some footage while we performed our tests. Our investigation usually starts with an Ouija board. Most ghost hunters claim this is complete BS, and honestly, we agree, but it does provide some good content. And we didn't get much of any movement from the board this time, besides for Todd trying to spell out PENIS a couple times. The next test we like to try is the spirit box. Todd absolutely hates this device. And I could see why, but Dan is convinced it's legit. We let the spirit box run for a while. Dan said he heard some related words, but I think he was really stretching his imagination, because all I heard was incoherent nonsense. I usually check an EMF reader while we investigate, but it was very unreliable tonight due to the building actually having power for once. And speaking of power, the air conditions scared the hell out of us a couple times during the testing. We're used to it being dead silent, and we fine-tune our ears to pick up any noises. So, when the AC roared to life, we all jumped. Once we agreed we weren't getting any evidence in this area, we walked across the hall to the swimming pool. The room is humid and smells like chlorine despite the 12-foot pool being drained. The hot tub had a couple renovations from the last time I had seen it. There's now a TV mounted nearby and a new mini fridge sitting adjacent. We ran a few tests in this room as well, with no proof yet again. We wandered over to the locker rooms, which are just outside the swimming area, and we entered the men's room, and it appeared to be well used. I assume this is Charlie's main bathing area based off the fresh towels sitting in the lockers and dirty laundry sitting in the hamper in the corner. The sink has a couple of new drawers built onto it with his toiletries sitting on top. And we didn't stay here for long or record any video as it felt invasive, even though he was gone. I stepped back into the hall and took an awkward glance into the women's locker room.
Hey, Thad, what you looking at?
Dan asked.
Is this how I found out you're a pervert?
I'm just curious. Haven't you wondered what a woman's locker room is like? I asked.
Sure, but it's probably the same as the men's, just without the urinals and maybe different paint,
Todd stated. Okay, well, don't you guys want to find out? Now's our chance, I said.
Sure, I suppose. Why not? Let's go peep in the girls' bathroom,
Todd said while walking in. When we entered the locker room, we were surprised and speechless from what we saw. The women's room also appears to be well used, but by girls, which was concerning because Charlie didn't have a wife nor kids. The lockers contained towels and girls' clothing, ranges from children's size to adults, and the doors on the stalls were removed. Todd broke the silence by saying,
What the fuck? Are you guys disturbed by this as well?
This is definitely concerning. This doesn't make any sense, I replied.
Why would Charlie have girls' clothes here, and why so much? It's just him that lives here,
Todd asked. Before I had a chance to reply, Dan shushed us, his eyes wide with fear, and stammered,
I think I just heard someone knocking. As in, knocking how?
Todd asked, still focused on the locker room.
Like when you knock on someone's door politely, waiting to be let inside,
Dan said.
Could have been old pipes, maybe?
Todd asked, still looking around the locker room.
No, it definitely sounded like a hand knocking on a door, as in, knock knock, who's there?
Dan said.
I'm telling you guys.
He was interrupted by the knocking. It must have been louder this time, as Todd and I both heard it clearly. Dan was right. It definitely sounded like someone knocking on a door. Even Todd looked like he agreed. I turned my camera on, and we stepped back into the hall. I asked, is it coming from the front door? Did someone find out we were here?
Maybe,
Dan said.
It's so hard to tell. The building echoes so much.
I started cautiously walking to the front door when we heard it again.
That sounded like it came from down the hall,
Todd stated. That leads deeper into the school. That's the hall that brings you to either the west or east wings, I said.
Well, I don't like that,
Dan said as the three of us began walking down the hall. The hall felt as if it was a mile long, and it felt like I was running one based on how hard my heart was beating. I'm excited that this will be the first bit of actual evidence we have ever gotten, but I am also terrified. We finally got to the end of the hall, and there were two sets of double doors on either side of the hall. The right set of doors were open. They lead into the east wing, which is the high school, assumedly where Charlie used to live. The left doors were chained shut. They lead into the west wing, which is the elementary school. That is the condemned wing, so that's probably why they were chained shut.
Which way do you think he came from?
Todd asked. And we got our answer as we heard another to the left, and I saw the West Wing door shake and bind against the chains. I slowly approached the doors and asked, "Hello? Who is it?" with false confidence. In response, we heard a quick pattering fleeing from the door like little footsteps running away in a game of tag. We sat in silence for a moment, my confidence quickly fading. Dan pushed on the doors and said,
"We have to get into the West Wing. There's clearly something back there. You think Charlie left a key somewhere?"
while he pulled on the lock. "Maybe," I replied, "but actually the East and West Wings share a lunchroom, so the two sides meet up again at the cafeteria. Maybe those doors are less secure and easier to break into."
"Well, let's take a trip through the East Wing then," Todd said, "before that critter gets away."
We all shared a look of agreement and headed through the high school doors.
5.
The high school appears to be more taken care of. The carpet looks recently vacuumed and the walls have been repainted. We walk through the vacant halls, passing by empty classrooms. I recorded some more with the camera while Dan and Todd were bickering yet again. Dan said,
"There's no way you actually think that was an animal back there." "It had to be," Todd responded. "What else could it be? A ghost? A ghoul? Some sort of monster, maybe?" "We are ghost hunting, so yes, I do think it could be a ghost. That's the whole reason we're out here. That's what we're trying to find," Dan stated.
Todd stayed quiet, probably because Dan has a pretty good point.
"What kind of animal do you think it was then?"
Dan asked half-jokingly.
"I don't know. That's why we're going over there. It has to be something pretty big, though,"
Todd said, convincingly.
"Oh, come on, dude. Seriously, do you hear yourself right now?"
Dan asked. We passed by the auto shop. It lay empty, which seems odd to me. The shop hasn't changed much, besides for the addition of Charlie's tools. The room is fairly dusty, but it's hard to tell if that's out of the ordinary for auto shops. The attached classroom is renovated into an office space. A newer computer sits atop his desk with a few file cabinets sitting along the nearby wall. We searched the office for his keys, but we found nothing, so we kept heading for the cafeteria. I led us through the next corridor and through a shortcut through the library. It has been remodeled into an oversized living room area. A couple couches and a reclining chair set around a large TV with a nice sound system. A couple of the bookshelves now hold an extensive collection of movies and CDs. We plan to come back to this room and investigate it further after we checked out the West Wing. We took a quick detour to explore the principal's office, which is now Charlie's bedroom. The layout reminds me of a small apartment. There's a waiting room when you first walk in, which connects to Charlie's bedroom and main bathroom. It is well decorated. The waiting area has a couple plants sitting in the corners of the room, and the walls are arranged with posters of old metal bands I don't recognize. His bedroom is also well kept. The bed is made, and his nightstand seems organized. We searched this area as well, but did not have any more luck finding the keys. I was beginning to worry that he may have had the keys on him the night he died, but I tried to push that thought away as we continued our expedition to the cafeteria. We finally arrived at the cafeteria. It is a spacious room lined with rows of long tables. I looked closer at the tables and saw something that troubled me. There are about a dozen lunch trays loaded with food sitting on a couple of the tables. The food looks to be only a day or two old, and I pointed out to the guys, and Todd seems equally troubled by it. We were confused about why Charlie would need so many trays for himself, but Dan walked by us, clearly more interested in the doors that connect to the West Wing, expressing a bravery we hadn't seen from him before. He stepped up to the doors and gave them a push. They are locked, so he took a couple steps back, and before either Todd or I can protest, he kicks the doors open. We caught up to Dan and said, a heads up would have been nice. Dan replied,
Well, we couldn't find the keys, and I don't know of any other ways, and so how else are we going to get into the elementary school?
Todd said,
I don't know, dude, but you didn't really give us any time to weigh our options. Okay, well, it's too late now, so why are we wasting time debating on how to get through the doors when I've already kicked them down?
Dan asked smugly.
Okay, fair enough. You make a good point,
Todd said, leading the way into the elementary school. Before following them, I recorded a quick extra bit of footage of the cafeteria, still troubled by the lunch trays. Eventually, I turned back towards my friends, hurriedly closing the gap into the West Wing.
6.
The West Wing is more neglected, but still holds the appearance of an elementary school. Most of the rooms still have the old desks and classroom decor, but are covered in a heavy layer of dust. This side of the school smells musty and stale. All the windows on this side are boarded up. The walls are painted pastel colors, and the floors have colored lines, which lead to different portions of the school. We saw no obvious signs of what was knocking on the door earlier, so we decided we should walk back to the first set of doors in hopes we might find something closer to where the knocking first occurred. As we got deeper into the elementary school, I noticed something. The West Wing is in very nice condition. It looks clearly abandoned, but it didn't appear to be on the verge of collapse like Charlie said it was. I mentioned it to the guys. Hey, does this wing look very condemned to you two? They paused to look around. Todd said,
I'm no building inspector, but I would agree. This wing does look pretty nice so far. I wouldn't condemn it.
Dan commented,
I thought Charlie said it was the second floor that was dangerous. We haven't made it up there yet.
I guess, I said, but I assumed there would be damage on the first floor as well, if the second floor was about to collapse. They just shrugged and continued exploring. As we traipsed past the computer lab, Dan stopped us, silently raising a hand.
What's up? Why are you acting all Black Ops right now?
Todd whispered.
Do you hear that?
Dan asked.
Do you hear that humming?
We fell silent, and I heard it. It's a sing-songy type of humming come from within the computer lab. We exchanged nervous glances, and I lead the way, slowly prowling into the room. The lab has numerous computers lining every wall and a couple rows down the middle. I can hear the humming clear now that we're inside, but I can't quite make out the song. We can't see the source of the humming right away, so we split up to get a better look. I slowly approached one of the middle rows. I apprehensively looked under the desk and discovered what was singing. A young girl is crouched under the desk on the far end. She's wearing a dirty, stained nightgown, and her hair is matted. She's rocking back and forth slowly, and I can now hear her whimpering. They need help, as she hums. I froze, unsure how to proceed. She must have felt my eyes on her because she quit humming and sit still. Slowly, she turns her head to look at me, and she looks me dead in the eyes, unblinking, and lets out this ear-piercing, raspy shriek. I jump back terrified, and she leaps at me. I narrowly avoid her, but somehow manage to drop the camera. She runs by me and towards the door. She ran into the hall screaming, "You shouldn't be here!" and "Get out!" I look back at the guys. They both sit petrified. "Guys, snap out of it! We gotta follow her!" I yell while picking up my camera off the floor. Thankfully, it still works. Dan rushed to my side, and we ran to the hall in the direction the girl fled. We rounded the corner at the end of the corridor and see the girl standing completely still, with her hand pointing towards the stairs. I stop and pull out my camera, recording clear footage of the girl. She whispers, "They're up there. Please help us." Dan said,
"Fuck this, dude, I'm out. We got our footage. This is enough from me."
and turns around, racing towards the nearest exit. Dan, wait! I yell, pleading. I turn back towards the girl, but she's gone. Nervously, I look around for her. I see fresh footprints in the dust that lead upstairs, but I'm not about to go up there alone. Yeah, fuck this, I agree and run back the same way as Dan. I found Dan and Todd back in the computer lab. Todd shook out his horror, but he was still spooked. I approached him by saying, "It's time to go, buddy. I got our footage. Let's leave." Dan nodded in anxious agreement, leading us out the door. We quickly retrace our steps back to the cafeteria. I am a bit concerned about Todd. I've never seen him this quiet before, but Dan is able to escort him out ahead of me. We made it back to the cafeteria without a vent, and I turned back momentarily to close the doors behind us. Then we paused briefly to catch our breath.
"What the hell was that?"
Dan asked, still rattled. "I think that was our first ghost," I said excitedly.
"Once we get out of here, I can't wait to say I told you so,"
Dan said, playfully pushing Todd. Todd laughed anxiously.
"Yeah, I guess you guys are right. I think that was actually a ghost. Did you get it on camera?"
"Oh yeah, I did. This video is going to blow us up. The footage I got is perfect. I dare say the best evidence on the entire internet," I responded.
"You guys ready to go home so we can get that footage posted then?"
Dan asked.
"Yes, I am very ready to get the hell out of here,"
Todd said. We headed back the way we came, following our footsteps through the high school, through the once home of old Charlie. I still have a lot of questions after this expedition, but for now, I'm focused on getting home. We made it through the high school easily and got back to the hallway that divides the west and east wings. I let out a sigh of relief as I saw the entryway doors at the end of the hall. I took a moment near the west doors to look at the chains, when the door slowly creaked open and rattled as it bound against the chains. A face now peering at us through the gap. As soon as I locked eyes with her, the doors began to violently shake, and I heard a girl's voice yelling and crying, "Let us out, please! Please, you have to set us free. Help us!" She started pounding heavily on the door and continued pleading, but we already began running in the opposite direction. We barged through the entryway doors, and I was half tempted to kiss the ground as I stepped foot on the parking lot. I looked around for my friends, their faces mixed with emotions, partially excited but also terrified. We recorded a quick outro outside the school. I'm unsure if it will be usable since we were so clearly shaken up. Dan gave a couple middle fingers to the old school, but Todd and I didn't look back. Finally, I put the camera away and we got into my car, relieved to be heading home and ready to post the video of what we found.
7.
It didn't take long for the video to blow up like we suspected. I spent the entire next day editing the video so I could post it as soon as possible. I was able to post it on Sunday night, just a day after our investigation. By Thursday, the video was on the trending tab with 1 million views. Our channel blew up, gaining 500,000 subscribers already, and didn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. We received a dozen DMs from other creators asking to collab or to ask us for the location of the school. But one DM stuck out in particular. It was from an individual named Josh. He was insistent on getting information about the girl we saw. Josh: "Hey guys, my name is Josh Henshaw. I just saw your video, and I know this may sound odd, but I was wondering if I could ask you a few questions about the girl. It's urgent." His message made me curious, so I agreed. "Sure, what do you want to know about her?" Josh: "Did you happen to see her eyes? If so, what color were they?" I didn't really get a good look at them. It was too dark in there. Josh: "How about her right forearm? Did you see a scar shaped like a dog bite on her arm? I didn't remember much about her arm, so I looked back at the footage. I start by rewatching when she leapt at me in the computer lab. That's when I noticed something. I didn't drop the camera. She knocked it out of my hands when she jumped at me. I could clearly see her hand hitting the camera, and it was the same arm Josh asked about. I took a closer look at her arm and saw she indeed did have a dog bite shaped scar. I sent another message to Josh. Yes, she does have a scar on her arm. How did you know that? Josh, I thought that was her. Please. You need to tell me the location of the school. I can meet you somewhere if you don't trust me. I'm not telling you anything more until you tell me how you knew about her scar. Josh. Okay, fine. I know about her scar because I think the girl you saw in the school is my missing sister. There's a photo attached to the message. I opened it and saw a missing person poster. The girl on the poster looks exactly like the girl I saw in the school that night. Her name is Lucy Hinshaw, and she went missing 9 months ago from a nearby county. I replied to Josh immediately with my phone number and gave him the location of the school. He told me he doesn't live too far from here, and we agreed to meet at my apartment tonight and then go to the police with our findings. 8. I stand outside the school once again with Josh, Todd, and Dan. But this time the school is bathed in flashing red and blue lights as the sun is setting behind it. The school is surrounded by what appears to be every police officer and EMT in town. The officers breached the school just moments ago, and we were told to wait in the parking lot. Josh made it into town earlier this evening. As soon as he came into my apartment, I knew he was telling the truth. I could see it in his eyes. They looked just like Lucy's. We skipped all the formalities as he told me all the details of her disappearance. After I answered all of Josh's questions, we went to the police station. We told the story to the officer at the front desk. Officer Anderson didn't seem to be convinced with our ghost girl in the school story until I showed him the video, and Josh pulled out the missing persons poster. Anderson put on his glasses to get a closer look at the girl and saw that we were serious. He showed our proof to some of the nearby officers, and they unanimously agreed to start an investigation. Then, a couple hours later, we arrived here. We weren't technically invited to join the investigation, but no one stopped us either. We sat in the parking lot for what felt like the entire night, but according to my watch, it has only been 45 minutes. The sun has fully set by now, and the night sky is beginning to take over. Finally, the front doors opened, and one of the officers exited the building with his arm around Lucy. Josh ran up to her as fast as he could without frightening her. Lucy watched him tensely until she recognized him. Then she smiled and fell into his arms. He said something to her, but I was out of earshot and I didn't want to intrude. The front doors opened again, and 2 more officers walked out, holding a couple of young girls in their arms. The girls were gauntly thin. They looked sickly, but were alive nonetheless. The officers rushed them over to the ambulance. Todd pointed me to the front doors again, and I saw 3 more officers rush out with girls in their arms as well. I overheard the 2 officers talking to the EMTs.
There are a couple more girls inside yet. Anderson is working on getting them free right now. 1 teen, 1 adult. These girls were chained upstairs in the elementary art room.
The other officer pointed to Lucy and said,
That girl gave us quite a scare in there, but she's the only girl not chained up. She said she escaped her chains last week and hit a bad man with a brick, but she hasn't seen him since.
The 3 other officers approached the ambulances, setting the girls on the available gurneys, and asked how they could help. An officer named Lincoln turned to us and told us he's going to take Lucy back to the station to treat her there and see what else she's willing to tell us tonight. Josh and I agreed to come with.
9.
By morning, a lot of my questions became answered. Lucy was very open about her experiences in the school. She was very brave, with encouragement from her big brother Josh. She started by telling us that she tried to hurt Charlie with a brick because he was a bad man, but she couldn't hit him hard enough and he dragged her back upstairs. That was the night that Charlie got into a car accident. Lincoln is going to look further into the autopsy, but suspects Lucy gave him a concussion and that caused him to veer off the road as he was driving to the hospital. Eventually, Lucy was able to escape her chains again, but couldn't escape the west wing since the doors were locked and the windows all boarded up. I felt pretty bad for closing the doors behind me as we fled that night. She also told us that Charlie has been kidnapping the girls from nearby towns. Lincoln pointed out that most of the girls rescued from the schools are in missing persons databases from neighboring counties. He showed the database to Lucy, and she was able to point out a few more girls that used to be at the school, but were picked up by another bad man. She said he comes from the south to pick up the girls who don't behave. I told Lincoln about the man who was listed as Charlie's next of kin that Todd mentioned last week. Lincoln pulled up the man's information and found his photo.
Reimagined.
He showed the photo to Lucy and she cried, but confirmed it was him. His name is Arnold, and he even looked like a creep. He should have made it into town by now, according to my conversation with Todd. Lincoln had his doubts that he would show at all, but said they would keep trying to reach him until he was caught. Later, when the IT department went through the computer in Charlie's office and they validated what Lucy said, they found hundreds of messages between Charlie and Arnold that revealed a bigger trafficking ring led by Arnold. At that point, they turned the case over to the FBI for a large-scale operation. That was the last of Officer Lincoln's questioning.
Music licensing reimagined.
Then the on-site nurse gave Lucy a quick evaluation. Lucy said she felt fine, so the nurse told her to get plenty of rest over the next few days and drink plenty of water. Lucy asked about the other girls in the school. The nurse said they were all going to be okay and that the officers were reaching out to their parents now. Finally, Lincoln said we are free to leave, but we have to stay in town until the investigation is complete. I extended an offer to Josh and Lucy to stay at my place for a few days, which they accepted. We left the department grateful for all they had done, but hopeful we wouldn't have to return anytime soon. We arrived at my apartment before noon. Before I could even offer my bedroom to Lucy, she was asleep on the couch. Josh
Music
fell asleep on the
licensing
recliner
reimagined.
adjacent to her, unwilling to leave her side. I left 2 glasses of water on the coffee table with a note telling them to help themselves to anything in the kitchen. I walked into my bedroom, turned on my computer. Officer Lincoln told me to delete the video of the school for the remainder of the investigation. I wasn't sure how long that would be, so I began writing my experiences here while the memories and emotions are still fresh.
Artlist.io.
Surprisingly, my YouTube channel no longer feels as important. I have new friends to care for now, along with my old ones. Maybe a break from ghost hunting will do me good, because I certainly found more than I was hoping to. So that's all for now, Midwest Ghost
Music
viewers. Until next
licensing
time, thank you.
reimagined.
Hey, I want to thank you all for sticking around with me. It's been quite a bit since I've recorded anything, and tonight I just decided to sit down and record this story. It's been sitting in my to-do list for a while, collecting dust. I want to thank exzakt99 from the Creepypasta subreddit for allowing me to read their story. I'm an amateur ghost hunter and was hoping to find a ghost, but found something worse. As I chose this story, it's very appropriate for things that are going on right now, things that fill my mind. I feel like paying attention to things that are going on in our world is more important than a lot of other things, but sometimes we have to balance them out, and that's what I'm trying to do right now. It's probably one of the hardest adult things to do. So, again, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for subbing. Thank you all for giving me your feedback. If you have any stories that you'd like me to read, you can reach me on Reddit at Salubuton, on Twitch. You can reach me anywhere on the internet under Salubuton, SALUTBUTON, or you can leave a comment on this video. Thank you. Take care of yourself because the world does need you. Until next time. Oh, real quick, I wanted to kind of apologize and poke fun at